Welcome to another episode of Educating Homebuyers, the podcast. I'm your host, Brady, and my mortgage team has over 9 years of mortgage experience here in Des Moines, Iowa. Whether you're buying your first home, upgrading, investing, or simply just curious about the market, this show is all about helping you and future homebuyers feel informed, educated, and comfortable as you take your next step. Each week, I sit down with real estate professionals, past clients, and local experts to unpack real stories, real advice, and what you actually need to know when buying a home today. Without further ado, let's get into today's episode. Today, we're joined with somebody who's built their entire business around connection, community, and helping people truly love where they live. She's a Des Moines-based real estate agent with Century 21 who believes home is about more than walls and square footage. It's about family, authenticity, and creating a space that feels just like you. A mom of 3 boys, a coffee lover, and a true reflection of Midwest realness, she brings heart, humor, and warmth into everything she does, whether she's guiding clients through a move, shopping, sharing home tips online, or exploring local spots around the metro. Emma Jordison, welcome to Educating Homebuyers.
Thank you for having me.
You betcha. Excited to chat with you.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Give you some insight into Educating Homebuyers. We're going to basically give you a platform to share your story, how you got into real estate, and any tips or tricks you've got for people that are looking to buy or sell real estate.
I love it.
So
I love it.
Let's start with that. Give everybody a background. How'd you get into real estate? What's your background?
So mine is kind of just a natural progression, I think, like a realization of how I came to love real estate.
Okay.
From little on, if I think back to like my childhood, which is kind of abnormal, like I was the kind of gal that my dad would bring home like the Sunday newspaper. And this is back when like they'd put open houses in the newspaper,
What's a newspaper?
Yeah, right. Like what is that? And I would like go through and we'd see like what houses were open and convince like my parents to go through open houses. We were those people that went through open houses with no intent to buy. Like, but that's kind of where it started. Would go to like the Des Moines Home Show Expo and just like loved that. Loved walking through homes, like the glorified part of like what people think we just do on a day-to-day basis as a kid. And then just kind of as I grew, I've always loved kids. We have 3 boys that keep us nice and busy. And I went into education.
Okay.
So I spent some time as an elementary educator, and I loved it. I have such a passion for educating and helping people achieve and watching them grow in like their achievements and their accomplishments. And so I taught for a couple of years. We had our oldest son. COVID hit. Just a lot of things where I think a lot of people probably made some big life changes.
No doubt.
And there was just kind of this moment where I just decided, you know what, I think I have this passion for real estate. And I'm great at what I do in terms of educating and how can I kind of find a passion within education and real estate. And it kind of just found me a little bit in a way. So I made the transition in, officially became a licensed agent in 2021.
Okay.
And I just kind of hit the ground running, building my business as a solo agent with 1 at the time, now 3 boys. We own rental properties. Our businesses have businesses, as my husband likes to call it.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't have it any other way. And it's just really great to be able to grow our real estate platform while helping other people become homeowners.
We talked about this a little bit last week, but what came first? Was it your first exposure to rentals yourself, and then you got into helping other people, or was it the other way around?
Yeah. So my husband had this crazy idea. One day I came home from my teaching job, and he wanted to house hack. And he was so hyper-focused, so passionate about this idea that I was very turned off on at first. I was like, no way are we going to buy a duplex and spend our whole summer gutting it and renovating it, literally taking down walls. I don't know if we thought we were like Chip and Joanna Gaines, but we did it. We were those people. And I was still teaching at the time, but I got my feet wet with like the marketing aspect of property and showing the unit off to people.
Sure.
And I was like, gosh, I really love this. And obviously like I had ties to it. It's our personal property. And so I wanted it to do well and, all those kinds of things. But I just really loved it. Yeah. And so that's kind of like, I think a light bulb went off in my brain where I was like, why do I love this? And why do I feel good at this? And that's kind of just, I think, where our real estate portfolio took off, but certainly like my real estate business kind of took off too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you fell in love with just the concept of marketing all that, which is cool. And it's great exposure too, right? Like you get the hands-on experience of what it's like to be someone who's buying real estate.
Absolutely.
And then you get to be firsthand sharing that with the people that maybe have no clue what they're doing.
Right. I mean, you can't convince someone that real estate is worth owning if you don't own it, I believe, yourself, or that you haven't gone through those experiences. Like we moved, it'll be 2 years ago in February, to a new home. And that was the first time we bought a personal residence as a licensed agent.
Yeah.
And I was stressed over the inspection. I was like worried. We walked through the house we bought 5 times, and I do this for a living. Like, so I tell people that because when you go through the process yourself, it just makes it that much more authentic for you to help someone, like guiding them through their experience too. You know what I mean?
Totally. And it's important. Like, I think it's an important perspective, because there's a lot of things as professionals that just almost seem like they're second nature, or they happen automatically and they just happen behind the scenes. And it's a fine line of like, what do you update the client on, and what do you just kind of let happen automatically, right? And I think when I bought 3 homes now, and through those experiences of going through it myself, had the opportunity to learn, what do I want to educate my clients on?
For sure.
And everybody's situation is different too. And I would tell you, I've had conversations with agents that have never owned real estate before, and I wouldn't say they're lesser agents. There's a ton of great agents that are still brand new and young, maybe younger than what they would want to be to own their first house. Like, that doesn't mean they're lesser agents than those that own a massive real estate platform. But it's unique experience that you've gotten that has allowed you to do that.
Well, and I always think too, like, people automatically assume like real estate agents just look down upon people that rent. Like, everyone has rented at some point. We certainly rented at some point. We own rentals. So I am pretty, on that note, like, I feel like I'm pretty firm in that idea that not everyone is meant to own a house all the time at that given moment, if that makes sense.
Totally.
Like, you have to kind of come into real estate on your timeline. And I'm big on educating people. I'll have people reach out that they're like, I want to start the process. I'm like 6 to 12 months. We were talking about this, I think. I'm like 6 to 12 months, like, before I even am moving boxes. Or like, I just signed a lease, but I know I don't want to renew that lease next time. Like, and that's part of our job, is to be like, in your space at the moment as a renter, these are the things you can be doing right now. And connecting you with a good lender to identify, like, do we need to build up your credit, or do we need to repair your credit, or should we start, saving some reserves for a down payment, and helping them make the most of that time period, not looking down on them because they don't own property, but helping them say, okay, in this given space, like, how are you better preparing yourself for when that time is right for you to own something, so that then you can start paying down your own mortgage and building your own, real estate portfolio. Yeah,
because we really are consultants at the end of the day, right? And we want people to feel confident and comfortable to reach out to us at any time. And I would argue that the more time we have, the better the experience can be. And how much more prepared. And I think you've said you've been doing this for roughly 4 years or so. How many of those conversations have you had 12 months in advance? And then when the time does come where they're ready to pull the trigger, how much more confident and comfortable are those people? And then, how much smoother of a process is it, and how happy are they once they close?
Yeah. And I think there's been this shift in the last probably year or so, where I think more of my clients are reaching out sooner. And I think there's probably 2 reasons being for that. I think the first one is I'm intentionally trying to do a better job at marketing how that should be the case. Like, you should feel like you should feel good about reaching out 6 to 12 months in advance. Like, that shouldn't feel like, oh, maybe I'm jumping the gun, or maybe this is too premature for me. Like, if your wheels are already turning, I've never had a client say, like, I wish I had less time to be prepared for a house.
Correct.
Right? And so I've started to see this kind of change over in the last year or 2. And I don't know if it's because of a little combination of, like, my marketing of, like, encouraging that. Or if it's just people, I'm recognizing, like, there are more buyers and sellers in our marketplace right now that are really knowledgeable about our market. Whereas, like, maybe a couple of years ago, they were just kind of like participants in the market. Like, sure, I'll lace up my running shoes and go do
the market had more control over them than they did of the market.
Yes. And now I think buyers and sellers, which is cool, are taking more control of their narrative in the marketplace. And so they're thinking about real estate a little bit sooner, and they're reaching out a little bit sooner so that they can build a plan. So when they get to that point, they're not scrambling, they're not panicking, they have a plan in place. They know who their key players are to help them close and get in their new home. And so I am seeing, like, more people reach out a little bit earlier and earlier. And it's great for me because then I get that time, even if I've known them previously,
Mm-hmm.
I get that time to start building that relationship with them,
Yep.
which for me is foundational to my business.
Right. Well, I think it's incredibly important for people to understand how personal buying real estate can be. And there's a lot of details, even if we're best friends, that we maybe don't know about this process that we need to know in order to deliver the highest experience for this client, you know? And mine is even more, arguably more personal than yours, because I get to look at their finances,
Sure.
right? And
Yeah.
I always like to make it clear that like that's not a privacy boundary. Like I am very like there's a compliance aspect of like I can't share any details, so don't be afraid of me knowing your finances.
Yeah.
And
Don't know
really,
how much I spent at Target last month. Like.
yeah, exactly. But I just want to be able to help guide based on that, right?
Yeah.
And I feel incredibly blessed because it does seem like a high percentage of the people that I connect with already have a good understanding of where they want their finances to be. But like you said, we have to feel confident and comfortable to reach out to us, and that's just something that we want our brand to be. You know, from the content we post and the marketing that we do, it's how we want to be known. You know, and selfishly, I probably told you this in the DMs the first time I sent you a message. That's why I reached out to you, because I feel like we relate very similarly in that and how we approach our clients.
Yeah.
You know, and I want to network and connect with people that are doing things the right way. It's always been my approach. And so, you know, even if we're not business partners or, you know, constant referral partners, I just want to know that there's good people doing good business in our industry. It's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one of your big taglines is DSM Homegirl, which is funny because you said you don't have it trade lined yet, right? Are we working
Not
on that
yet.
or trademarked,
We're maybe
I guess?
working on it.
But anyway, I think that's cool. And I'd love to give you an opportunity to share your heart behind that and what that's allowed you to have access to from a marketing standpoint.
Yeah. It's so funny because like sometimes people will like say that like in conversation or like jokingly around the office or whatever. Like my broker might be like, "Hey, my DSM homegirl," or whatever, you know. And kind of like honestly, I feel like I just started to kind of put that out in the universe and it stuck.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, my kind of like heart behind it is I love to be that local resource. So even if it's not, you know, I'm a firm believer, like, I don't know that many people come to my Instagram because they're like looking for a real estate agent. I think when they come to my Instagram, they're hoping to find a lot of things. And one of those is maybe a local resource, maybe a local real estate resource. Obviously that's what pays my bills,
Without a
right?
doubt.
So that would be helpful for them to know that.
Sure.
But I also love the fact that like, being someone's Des Moines homegirl, like that could mean like my local resource. Like my husband and I are going to go to Ankeny for a date night. Where should we get the best pizza? Or my mom's coming into town. We're going to do some holiday shopping. Where should we stop and get coffee first?
Yep.
Like when people reach out to ask me those things that have nothing to do with real estate, first of all, I love it.
Yeah.
Second of all, I just think it makes me more competent in my marketplace of knowing just kind of what makes Des Moines so cool, puts Iowa on the map and just makes it such a great place to live, which then kind of just naturally builds this relationship with people. And, you know, so many of us, like we follow these people on Instagram and over time you kind of get to know that person. And if you do a good job with your Instagram, which I aim to hopefully do a good job of presenting myself authentically on Instagram.
Yeah.
You get to kind of know that person behind the screen a little bit. And then you meet that person in real life. And, you know, my hope is always that people feel like I'm exactly who they met online.
Right.
And they already have that establishment of trust, that they know me, and hopefully they like me and that they trust me, most importantly, to guide them through their biggest, one of their biggest milestone events in life. You know, when you think about getting married and having kids, like real estate is in that series of, and to be able to go alongside of someone in that is so massive.
Yeah.
But that takes time to like get to know that person, to trust that person that's going to guide you through that. And so I've always wanted that to be a safe space, that Instagram space. And so that Des Moines homegirl thing, I think just kind of comes naturally. And I think people really like latched onto it and I love that.
Yeah.
And I think it's just really rooted in just kind of being hopefully that local go-to.
Here's the biggest point that I think is really cool, and maybe you've never even thought about that. But one thing that I really like is that you use DSM Homegirl, not DSM Housegirl. And the difference that I would compare there is that it's not about just the house.
100%.
Home is a place that you can raise a family.
Yeah.
It's a place that you can have great memories. It's a place that you can go in your neighborhood to have dinner. It's a park that you can take the kids to. There's so much more when you think of the word home than you do house.
Yeah.
You know, and that's one of my favorite parts about that is like, that's really what your passion is, and it's apparent. And it comes across that way in marketing.
Yeah. I mean, home is cozy. It's warm. It's the kitchen that you're, you know, preparing the pie with the Macy's Day Parade in the background. Like, that's home is so much different than the word house. And I tell sellers that too. Like when you're getting feedback on your listing, I do my best to kind of help sellers remind gently, like, you're going to get feedback on your house and this is your home.
Yep.
And so structuring kind of those conversations too, and what that looks like, and kind of trying to gently set those expectations of just remember, like, when someone's coming through your house, they're not thinking of the home potentially yet.
Right.
Or on the flip side, they're going to walk through your house and find home. And like how I help my sellers set up their places to feel like home for that next person too, because I 100% agree. Those two words, they have very different meanings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a good tip we could talk about. When prepping someone to sell a property, what is some things that you would point out or put emphasis on that would help make it seem, I don't even know if I'm wording this question right, the most attractive to somebody who's looking to buy it?
Yeah.
Whether it's, again, finishes, furniture, whatever, what are some things that you highlight when you're going to a listing appointment that you recommend a person look into? And maybe on the flip side, what are some things that they shouldn't read too much into?
Yeah. Well, I think, buyers and sellers are becoming a lot more engaged in their marketplace. They're walking into real estate with their eyes wide open. They know what's going on in the market more than I think they have in the last few years.
Okay.
So when I'm sitting down with sellers and I'm talking about kind of, I always tell them, like, when I come in for the listing appointment, like, I'm going to be kind of the bad guy and talk about the things like the pitfalls, the things that I might expect to be coming up in inspections or coming up in feedback, not because I'm trying to like downplay your house, but I don't want your first piece of feedback to be something that I could have, gently coached you on, like, let's prepare this or let's fix this or whatever. And so I think buyers, especially first-time home buyers, are really looking at, how has this home been maintained, or how has it not been maintained? So I recently had a listing where the house was really maintained. The roof, the siding, the gutters, the HVAC, the water heater, they lived in that place and they made sure that they were doing those timely things to keep up the home.
Okay.
Being good homeowners, you know what I mean? We talk about, like, when someone buys a house and they're like, gosh, I've owned it for 6 months and now I have to replace the water heater. Like, that does suck. That is a bummer, but this is also part of home ownership, and it's going to pay dividends because you are staying on top of your home maintenance.
Right.
So I think from that perspective, I try to educate my sellers, and then also my buyers, when we're walking through a property and we're looking at what kinds of things have they done about the home. Those are big things. We know that Iowa is in the top 3 for insurance right now. And so I'm talking to my buyers about, like, potential things that might come up in the inspection. And, yes, you might love the house, but, the roof might need to be replaced in a few years. Like, just what does that look like for us? Just going in and having those conversations. From like a livability standpoint, though, I'm really trying to help my sellers, and this is gentle, like, this is very delicate, but trying to help them kind of make their home appealing in a sense to someone, but not overwhelming because it's too personal.
Sure.
So we talk about, like, listing photos, removing things that might be a little personal to them. That could be like family photos. Remember, these are going to be online. And, just different things, like, especially this time of the year, we're coming up on the holidays, maybe paring down the decorations, just different things that invite someone in where they can envision themselves in the space and not be so distracted by, kind of how you've made it a home.
Right.
It's just a delicate balance, and every property is super unique. But, I think for buyers and educating and sellers in the same kind of breath is, how is this home been maintained? Can I see myself in this space? And then just kind of looking for just, like, anything that maybe is just kind of red flags.
Yeah.
And from a seller's perspective, from a listing agent, as I'm walking through, I get to be that person that has that awkward conversation of, like, there's a bit of a smell here, or, there's an eerie stain on the ceiling, different things like that.
Yeah.
Because, again, it might be uncomfortable. And this is an easy place for an agent to miss the mark. It might be uncomfortable to have those conversations up front with your buyer or with your seller, but they're going to be less surprised when that becomes potentially an issue. And they're going to be super thankful,
that you
in my experience, that you pointed it out.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think an interesting thing that I would love to hear your opinion on is when preparing or somebody's thinking about selling a home, I feel like the common thought in the back of their heads is maybe I need to do all of these updates and improvements prior to listing. What's your 2 cents on that?
I think it's a very fine line, and you have to be really careful because I do have sellers that are like, gosh, do I finish my unfinished basement? Do I add $6,000 of landscaping to the front? And in some cases, I think it depends. Every property's unique, but I think it really depends on what's our competition. If you're competing with other new construction, how can you stand out? I don't know that finishing a basement is going to help you stand out. It's not going to pay dividends, I don't think. That return on investment is probably not great.
Yep.
Unfortunately, in an unfinished, in a finished basement space, when you're comparing it to a new construction, they might just walk in and be like, cool, it's a finished basement, but they don't know how much money you spent on it.
Right.
And you can easily go kind of on the very high end of finishing a basement.
Yeah.
So what are some other ways to make your house stand out? Maybe adding some backsplash. Maybe adding a little bit of landscape, a little bit of curb appeal, I think is always good. But I think a full-blown kitchen renovation, a full-blown bathroom remodel, unless I have a client who's reaching out to me and saying, we're going to redo our kitchen with the intent that we want to redo it for us, we want to update it for us, and we know we're going to sell it in a couple of years, but we just want to know from your opinion, like, if we do this whole kitchen remodel, should we go with this color cabinets, or should we do like this color flooring, or this type of flooring or whatever? That I feel like I really appreciate when I get to have those conversations with clients, because I'm like, okay, if you're going to do a full kitchen remodel, who are you doing it for? If you're doing it for the next buyer, you can't be guaranteed that they're going to love that gray flooring over the, white oak colored flooring, right? Or that kind of carpet, or that kind of cabinet, or that kind of countertop. And so who are you doing it for? It's always my number one question. And what is like your plan with this? Like, is your plan like, if we just do this whole kitchen remodel, we can sell this for $50,000 more? And looking at the comps. Well, all of the houses that you'd be competing with, how does that help guide our conversation? And how does that help you with your potential investment?
Yeah. And I think the big thing too for people to remember is that you can't always know what the future holds too. I think back to the first time that I sold my first property, I had literally just finished doing some of those lower end finishes you talked about. Like I had put a new backsplash in, and I think I shiplapped a wall maybe.
Hey,
went through a stigma. Yeah. Right. But it was literally like I did that, and then a week later I decided I was ready to move. Like a new property popped up and it caught my eye, and I did it. And so that's the other thing I would encourage people with is like your timeline it's okay if it changes.
For sure.
And we're here to help navigate that. But to her point, like, don't be afraid to utilize your resources and ask opinions on what that stuff looks like. But I think the biggest point that you made there is do it for you, not for the future person.
Yes.
Because their taste is going to be entirely different than what yours is.
Yes.
And the example of the basement being finished, for example, I mean, that right there is like, it's more the concept of being able to do it than having it done, you know? And for the right buyer, maybe that is something that moves the needle.
Yeah.
Like having it done so they don't have to mess with it could be a big difference maker for them.
Yep.
But on the flip side, some other buyer might just want to see it as the opportunity to finish it down the road and not feel like having to pay for it right now. So making decisions for the next person are very hard to predict because you don't know who that's going to be and what their taste is.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a risky move. It's typically, a pretty substantial investment to do. You don't know if someone's going to want that extra bedroom or extra bathroom, or if they're just going to want, a large living room space. And like you said, you can't predict the future. Yeah. Let's say you do it in, the fall and you decide to sell in the spring. And what if the market just changes and it swings in a direction where, you're counting on making that $30,000 up in your list price. And maybe your comparables, I'm sitting down with you and I'm saying, this is kind of where we're at in the marketplace. Right. Like, it's just a risky move to make.
Well, I think the conversation's different case by case based on the person too, right? And their financial situation. If this is the only money you have saved and your equity position is low, that's a different conversation than say somebody that owns their house free and clear and has a good savings and a good nest egg and everything else. Like, two entirely different conversations. Like like you said, if you're relying on this money and recouping it in a year and a half, 2 years, you as the agent can't necessarily promise that you're going to get every last dollar put back into it.
Right.
But on the flip side, if you're intending to live there and you have no intentions of moving and it would make you a happier person, by all means.
Yep.
Well,
we know, like, obviously real estate, it's a long game. Like, your equity is built over time. And so, yes, you can buy a house and sit in it for the next 5 to 10 years and not do anything to it, and it should appreciate. But if you are buying a house, it's good to do those little improvements or updates or upgrades so that when you go to buy or when you go to sell it 5 to 10 years down the road, someone can go back and look at the things that you might have changed. As an agent, I do that all the time. If I have a client who has an interest in a property, I'm going back to that previous listing description or that previous listing and looking through the description and seeing like commons or differences, and like, oh, they updated a lot of the, exterior maintenance. They did the roof, they did the siding. Oh, it looks like they completely remodeled the kitchen in the time they lived here. That definitely adds value to it. So, I don't know if a lot of agents do that as well. I assume so, but I just like to go back and look and see what the listing history of that property is. And then I can kind of further educate my client as we're walking through, like, actually they did do a lot of updates. This is different, or they, remodeled this kitchen, and that does put money, that does help build that value of the property up.
This is a novice question because I really don't know, but have you noticed a difference in that as massive builders have become more popular? And maybe it's just a metro specific thing, but as a person who doesn't spend a lot of time out looking at the inventory or that their houses are out there, but it seems like over the last, I'm going to spitball 15 years, it's become more common for builders to build spec homes versus maybe a custom build, right?
Yep.
And a lot of those spec homes have the same finishes, the same, everything is the same in there. In the back of my head, I'm thinking as somebody who's not educated on that, does that hurt resale value? And is someone better off if you buy one of those homes to do some unique improvements to it to make it stand out compared to the 150 other homes that are in the same neighborhood that you're in? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So we bought a new construction. We'll be in it 2 years in February. And we've never lived in new construction before. And we are very much so your typical like new construction homeowners, where we've lived in it for almost 2 years. We finished the basement, and that was a huge thing for us. Kind of out of necessity, right? Like we have three boys. We have 3 boys. We live in Iowa. It's already cold, and we need somewhere for them to go. And run and scream, and be boys. But like we have conversations about that all the time. Like it's not just, painting the walls, although that does add character to it. Of course. My husband loves to add character to a house. And so we have this blank canvas of a new construction. I always said I was never going to buy a house with white cabinets and trim, and we did. And so, things like the backsplash, the adding landscaping in the spring, the finishing of the basement, because we knew that was something that was not going to just add value to our home when we go to sell it, but it was going to add value to our life, our quality of life, our quality of our kids' lives. And so that was just a natural, like, this is worth the investment. We think we'll get our money back on that investment when we go to sell in however many years, but we did that for us. The backsplash and the landscaping, I think, could be both. We are doing it for us, but we're also doing it for our future, sale. But I do think like doing something with your new construction house, I think is important. It just sets you apart a little bit.
Am I right with that? Is the concept of a spec neighborhood, is that somewhat newer, or was that always kind of been a thing? Like even 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s homes, were a lot of homes when they were built back then, were they all similar? I just seems like from my perspective, it seems like there's been an increase over the last 20 years or however long it's been. And I'm not downplaying them by any means. I want to make it clear if there's any builders watching this or anybody that owns a home that's a spec home, like I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It just seemed like there's more, I don't like using this term, but cookie cutter properties that are very similar to the one right next door than what there maybe was 40 years ago. Is that a true statement, or is that not, has that always kind of been a thing?
Yeah, I would say it seems like there are more like developments, like 1 or 2 builders will take down like a development, and you'll see a lot of the same, builders of a certain price point, like in a certain development, of various different price points, because you'll see that with like custom builders too. There's so much development happening in some of our big cities, Ankeny, Waukee, where, you have these developments of a handful of builders, or maybe just 1 or 2 maybe. And I do think that there is sometimes I have buyers that are like, I don't want the cookie cutter. I don't want the cookie cutter. And sometimes those are actually the buyers that buy the new construction, that buy the spec home. But I do think that there's been, in the last couple of years, as an agent myself, there's been so many opportunities for buyers in the new construction space that I don't want to say they're settling. Like, we certainly didn't settle when we bought our new construction house, but there were so many advantages of us buying new construction that we were like, we can get an attractive interest rate. We could get, depending on kind of what was going on at that time in the market, maybe more so than when we're buying a resale property. Because I think sometimes, buyers, when they're looking at both resale and new construction, which I feel like a lot of my clients do. I don't feel like I have a lot of clients that are like strictly new construction or strictly resale. I have a lot that, depending on their price point, because of inventory,
take a look at both.
They're taking a look at both and they're comparing both. But I think it really does depend on kind of what is most important to that buyer. And for some, they're like, you know what, I want the non-deferred maintenance. I want like the peace of mind and a warranty, which I've actually seen, side note, a lot of offers coming with home warranties in the resale space, like almost just as a given, like right out of the gate, which is
context for you, because you probably didn't have exposure to this since you've only been doing it 4 years. Used to be a very normal thing also prior to 21, 22, 23.
So hello, like walked into real estate, like birthed into the real estate world with my running shoes on, where I was just like, we can't ask for anything. And we're competing now. And I know you just saw it 5 seconds ago.
A warranty is a good thing. Like, that's okay.
Yeah. And I think like a lot of people were taking like a total detour, but a lot of people are like, they're sad. Like, they miss how easy it was to sell a house, or, but there's a lot of buyers, I believe, that probably missed out in 2021 and 2022 that maybe have been renting since then, or maybe they bought something, they have a really beautiful interest rate, and they're like holding on so tightly, afraid to let it go. That now, fast forward, we've spent kind of the last year or so about like interest rate about the same. And I think it's really truly like the market is the haves and the have-nots, and the people that are like, either they're sitting on a lot of great equity, and now they're like, you know what, I've waited out the interest rate. It's not really changing, but my needs have changed, or they've heightened, and now I need to make a move. Or, I've been on the sidelines. I was counted out in 2021. I couldn't compete with these other offers, and now I'm ready to jump back into that space.
No doubt.
And so going back to like the new construction, I think there's been a lot of opportunity in new construction. And that's just an interesting whole nother sector of real estate that I could go on about all day, about just how new construction has changed so much since I started just 4 years ago to where it is today. But I just think there's a lot of people that also love that in-between space of new construction, but the character of a resale. And I've had a lot of clients that have actually done a lot of like build to orders. So they're getting that spec floor plan. They're getting that spec, kind of the bones of it, if you will. And they're like, but I get to pick the cabinets. I get to pick the countertops. So they kind of have that little bit of taste of like building their own custom home without doing it
full forced.
Yes.
Love it. Well, this has been awesome. Thank you for being a value asset and resource.
I told you I talk a lot.
No, you do not. I promise. I always joke with everybody. It's funny how fast these episodes go. It seems like we're both very passionate about what we do, and we could talk about this for hours on end. But this has been fun. We'll probably have to do it again at some point, so I'm just going to warn you. But thank you again for being a valuable resource. I'll be sure to link all your social media in the description below. So if anybody's been listening to this and feels called, obviously follow her along, reach out to her, message her, set up a coffee meeting, whatever it is. On the flip side, if you're an Emma lover and you want to follow along with my stuff, I appreciate you guys tuning in as well, and just excited to be a resource all around. So thanks again, Emma, and thanks again, everybody, for watching. This has been another episode. We'll see you guys next time.